What is something completely real that happened in your life that others would think sounds like bullshit? Was robbed at gunpoint while sitting in my car. Gave the guy the trash that was in my door and he ran away with trash. Was he a raccoon? When I was 10 I was hanging out with this older kid and he suddenly threw me on the ground and tried to stab me. He was on top of me and the knife was a few inches from my face. I was holding his arms back with everything I had, then he suddenly got off me and said he was joking, then ran away. I nearly collided with a low-flying swan while jogging. I was not near a lake or river, so I have no idea why the swan was in the area. I turned a corner and saw something white flying in my direction. I thought it was a seagull but realized it was a swan at the last second, forcing me to duck and roll, and then swear really loudly. Before cell phones I accidentally misdialed a number but got the person I wanted at the wrong number. She was at her uncle's house. I was in college, Oklahoma State. I was in my dorm and told my roommate, I need to call my dad, just out of the blue. My dad lived in Tampa. When I picked up the phone to call my dad, he was on the line. My phone didn't ring. He had called me to tell me my grandmother, who lived in Michigan, had passed. It was the weirdest thing ever. This was in 1987, way before cell phones. Just a regular phone in my dorm room. My roommate was creeped out by it and assumed my family was possessed, which we probably were. I once went to a big concert in Glasgow with my mom and sister, and a family that we met while on holiday in Spain a few months earlier happened to be sitting right in front of us. I have a similar one. In the 70s my Italian parents met an Austrian couple on holiday. They hit it off, promised to keep in touch but eventually lost contact. Fast forward to the late 90s. My grumpy 18-year-old ass is on holiday with my parents in our camper van. Italy is a glorious country, yet my father randomly decides to spend some time in this unknown, extremely underwhelming looking place. Think a half-assed parade of modern buildings, shops with flats on top, pebbly beach, not so clear sea, the kind of place you'd visit for a day trip if you're local, merely out of convenience. They park next to another camper van and notice how familiar the guy looks. It's their Austrian friend and his wife. I am a dwarf/little person, and when I was 17 I applied for a place in an art college. To get in you had to submit a physical portfolio of pieces you had made, usually up to A1, so pretty damn big. So I went into the school to submit my folio, struggling with my massive folder, when another little person appeared from nowhere and helped me out with it. I'd never met another little person before in my life, so it was quite a surprise. Turned out he was a student currently studying there in filmmaking. So we went through the school, two dwarfs who didn't even know each other, carrying this huge leather folder that was bigger than us through the college campus together. Sadly, I didn't get a place there. He seemed like he could have been a good friend. I fell off a 3-story roof when I used to do roofing. Shingles had been ripped off and I was sitting down at the peak of the roof removing any nails sticking up. Started sliding slowly towards the edge and couldn't stop. I'm kicking and pushing back to stop moving but I just couldn't. Dropped off the edge and fell straight down. Landed on my feet yet didn't break anything. Ankle hurt a little bit for a few minutes after. Watched happen. At a concert in a newish dive venue in Leeds, Faster Pussycast I think. Guy leans against the wall while lighting a cig. The fire doors open and he falls straight backwards through the hole. Doors then close. His friends start looking around for him. I live in South Carolina and when I was young I was out in my backyard playing on my swing set. I heard some unusual rustling in the trees of the woods and looked up to find a small monkey. I couldn't believe my eyes and took off running to the house to tell my dad. He didn't believe me right away, but I finally convinced him to come outside to look. When we walked back to my swing set, we saw not only the monkey, but now, standing underneath the tree, was a man holding a pistol and a woman holding a banana. They saw us and the man began to speak. If he doesn't come down, I'll have to shoot him. Pretty much right after that, the monkey saw the banana and headed straight down to the woman and sat on her shoulder. And that was that. They left and we found out they were our neighbors from 5 or 6 houses down. Similar thing happened to a colleague of mine. I taught at a small high school, magnet school with only one building and about 50 kids per grade. The principal was off-site at a meeting or conference. The water stopped working in the building and the teachers were wondering what to do about it. The school focuses on engineering, so one of the engineering teachers decides he will go outside to look at the system to see if he can see what is wrong. We are on a large university campus in a major city in the US. He comes back in and says he can't fix the water. And also he saw a monkey walking around near the parking garage. All the other teachers think he has gone nuts and don't believe him. He keeps telling them that he definitely saw it. The day at school is just completely chaotic. After the students have gone home, one of the teachers finds a news story that a monkey had been loose in our part of the city and was recaptured near the university. My girlfriend, at the time, loaned out her high school graduation video to another friend. Unbeknownst to the GF, her dad had recorded a porn over the video. Girlfriend's friend sat down with the fam to watch. Well, not the graduation. I dated the same person for 3 years in high school. When we went to different colleges, it eventually didn't work out. While at her college, my high school girlfriend joined a sorority, and part of the onboarding was being matched with someone random to tell them about yourself and see if you were a match for the sorority. My high school girlfriend was telling her match that she just got out of a 3-year relationship and goes on about me. 5 years later, I meet a girl in a different city and we hit it off. After a few dates, when we are going over people we both know, we realize she was the one who was matched with my high school girlfriend. So the guy she was hearing about all of those years ago was the one she was dating now. We've been married 9 years so far. I've had 2 next door neighbors brutally murdered, in 2 separate neighborhoods, in 2 separate states. Both were random. Both were in extremely safe cities. Also, after I tell it, and they finally believe me, they never want to live next door to me. I'm not a killer, just odd circumstances. When I was a baby, I peed on Jamie Foxx in a movie called Booty Call, 1997. Backed out of my grandparents' driveway quickly, running late to work, already on the street, and saw a huge truck racing towards me too late. I gasped, clutched the wheel, squeezed my eyes shut, and slammed on the brake, bracing for the impact. The only thought I had was, please let me live. Then, nothing. I peered one eye open, and felt disoriented to see that the car was back in the driveway, as if I hadn't moved at all. I faked being sick because I wanted to get out of school. I was absolutely fine, just didn't want to do maths and sport. Got picked up, driven home, planning on a day lounging on the sofa, but as soon as I stepped foot in the door, I threw up. I had a severe gastro-vomiting bug, for like 2 days straight. That was the last time I ever faked being sick. I also faked sick, and my mom just knew, so she took me to the doctor, and I kept protesting that it was probably nothing, no need for a doctor. He did a test for strep which came back positive. First off, strep was going around. I most likely had pre-symptomatic strep, and because I got on meds right away, I never got any actual symptoms. Phew. My dead stepfather had an indoor pet flying squirrel that was evil and bit till you bled. He flew into the oven and died. My friend was run over by a train, and survived. I once beat a heavy full metal Beyblade with a lightweight plastic one. Walked to work daydreaming about my store getting robbed and me getting shot. About 30 minutes after I opened the store, a guy come in, stuck a gun in my back, and had me go in the office and empty both safes. Unfortunately, I didn't get shot. I was in a small plane crash when I was 4 to 5 years old. I remember being upside down. Think we were somewhere in Arizona. They cut my favorite Pooh Bear shirt off in the hospital, but one of the nurses bought me a new teddy bear because I had left mine in the plane. I kept that teddy bear for years, but sadly I don't know where it is anymore. I got 3 bullseyes in a row on a dartboard. Of course, I was alone and just practicing and have 0 video proof. I have a similar one. I'm a terrible golfer. I was playing around with a friend of mine, and with 6 holes left, he gets a call from his wife that she's got a flat tire or something and he has to go get her. So I figure, I'm almost done. Course isn't crowded. Might as well play the last 6 alone. Next hole is a par 3. It's like 100 yards give or take. A good player can easily reach the green on the first shot. I'm not a good player. Shank the first shot. It goes about 25 yards and not straight. So now I'm like 85 yards away and in the rough. That's when I hit the shot of my life. Hit it perfect. Lands on the green. Bounces once. Rolls and goes in. I start jumping up and down and looking around, praying someone saw it. But no. Nobody in sight. I threw dice on a craps table. They went all crazy, bouncing all over the place, almost falling off the table. Then hit each other midair, stuck together, landed on the table with 1 die on top. The top die was spinning as fast as you could imagine for a good 2 seconds, and then fell off, and I hit 9, 5 and a 4, the number I was shooting for. Had max odds. The dealer said he's never seen that, and another player said it's something you'd see in a movie. I just wish I had a physics degree so I could make sense of it. One time I was playing craps, and a guy came and stood next to me. The woman on my other side just pulled all her chips and whispered to me, I hate playing with that guy. He's terrible. I didn't know either of them, and was like, fuck it, I'm gonna stay. When it came my time to shoot, I ended up on like a 15-roll hot streak. Then I hit a hard 8. The guy next to me had $20 on all the hards, and let it ride, and threw like $10 on hard 8 for me and the dealer, which I didn't notice, and then I threw a hard 8 again. I finished with a streak of about 20 rolls. Then the dude next to me, who the woman hated, had a streak of about 20 rolls. Both our streaks ended because some asshole at the opposite end of the table reached down to put in more money. When we left the table after his rolls, I told him exactly what the woman said, and we both laughed. Dude made like $8 off our streaks. In my early 20s I house sat for someone, and I was sitting on the front porch in the afternoon when this man came out of the park across the street and asked for directions to a nearby street. He was wearing a wig and had 2 round red spots on his cheeks, and his shirt was rolled up and his pants rolled down, exposing himself. I guess I was in shock because I calmly gave him directions. Walked inside and then freaked out a little. I told my sister and a friend about it, and they both laughed and weren't convinced it happened. I used to talk to BB King for hours when he would come into the computer store I helped manage. He would come in every few months for CDRs. I was telling the story a couple years ago to a group of new hires at the company I now work for, and one of the new employees ended up being his grandson. I was once hunted down by a detective in a homicide case, but come to find out, he had been tracking the wrong guy because of a clerical error of mistaking a C for a G in my name. When I was a kid, I was out playing at the local park with my friends. This was back in the time before everyone had a cell phone, so landlines and payphones were still a thing. The payphone started ringing after we thought about it because we didn't even know they could do that. I picked it up. It was another one of my friends calling me. He didn't know I at the park. Turns out that payphone had exactly the same number as my house, aside from the very last digit was 9 instead of 8. My friend had misdialed the number and through complete coincidence called a payphone about 20 feet where I was, a couple of miles away from my house, and I was the one to pick it up. Like 8 years ago, my mate and got a taxi to McDonald's at like 4 a.m. after going clubbing. We drove past some guy on his way to work and yelled some drunk shit out the window to him. We got dropped off 30 seconds later, and as soon as we got out of the taxi he sprints towards us and started swinging at us with a machete. We were running backwards and it was missing us by inches. While he was swinging at one of us, the other one punched him in the back of the head. This happened a few times and he ran away. We were pretty drunk, so we ended up laughing about it in McDonald's, but I still can't believe it happened. Lol. Had a running chainsaw blade hit me in the head. No damage. Was taking down a small tree in my yard. Reached down to grab some branches to move. Person I was working with turned around. With the chainsaw running, blade hit me in the head. Bit hit me with the broad side of the blade flush. I damn near shit my pants. If he had the blade on any other angle, even a degree or two, my head would have been meatloaf. I kicked a wet towel across a room. It did some Tony Hawk stunt mid-air and gracefully landed on a doorknob, nonchalantly as if it had been sitting there for weeks untouched by the cold earth. When I was like 10, I had dropped a ball, a marble I think, and it had run away the way that round objects do. I decided that the best course of action was to predict where it gone by calculating where it went, i.e. how it reflected off walls, and I went through a series of fictitious bounces, around like 10 of them, and the ball was right smack where I had predicted it to be. I have been chasing that high ever since, but physics is taking a mental toll on me. At about that same age, my parents gave me a sapphire ring for Christmas, a tiny little sapphire. Nothing super fancy. We weren't rich, but I loved it. It was slightly too big for my fingers and my mom suggested I let her take it in to be resized. But of course I didn't want to do that and wore it to school the day after winter break, even though it was kind of loose. At some point around lunchtime, I noticed the ring was gone, fallen off my finger, and I had no idea where or when. I looked around at school the best I could, but didn't find it. I went home sad and scared, figuring I was about to be in big trouble. That night as I lay in my bed, I ran through the whole morning in my mind, trying to think of likely places it could have slipped off. I remembered I had slipped on a patch of ice walking to school, which had caused me to throw my arm back trying to catch my balance, and had an idea that maybe I had thrown it off my finger then. The next morning I left early for school, found the patch of ice in my neighbor's yard, and recreated the slip and fall. I followed the arc I figured the ring would have taken given the direction and force of my flung arm. And there was my ring, slitting about 20 feet away at the base of a tree directly in the path I had recreated. 4th grade physics FTW.